I was fishing in Whitstable from 1972. I had just bought a house, or we, I should say, the royal we. My wife and I, we'd sold a bungalow on the Isle of Sheppey, which I purchased that bungalow in 1965 for $2,950. In 1972, we sold it and got, I think, 6,000. So we doubled the price. We doubled the price of the house in 7 years. So we were buying a house in Whitstable, at number 3 Tenham Road, Whitstable. It was a terraced house, nice house, and Mr. G wanted, I think, 6,000, round 6,000 for it. So I took a mortgage and I paid a deposit of 1,700, 1,700, and took a mortgage, and I was left with about 1,700, which I had decided. The reason I'd not put all the profit from the bungalow into the house is that I had a little bit of experience with boats on the Isle of Sheppey, and I had met somebody in Whitstable who was a fisherman, got talking to him, and decided that I would buy a fishing boat. I bought the boat from Newhaven, which I think is in Newhaven. It's not far from Brighton, I believe. It's on the south coast. I think it must be West Sussex, I think so. And it was a Norwegian dory, 32 feet in length. So it's an open, clinker-built boat. It had a wheelhouse for it. It had a 46 horsepower Dorman diesel engine. I was making the purchase in March of 1972. I'd driven there. I'd taken my dog, a little Jack Russell dog called Lady, which was quite aggressive towards my children, and it generally wasn't a very nice dog. My wife had told me to take it to Newhaven and don't bring it back. Now, it's a difficult choice. At that time, I don't think I was very much into dogs. I had never had a dog that was close to me, and she had insisted that I get rid of the dog. What choice have you got? You either find a home for it, or you do what some people do, drive to the countryside and let the dog out, and you hope that somebody's going to find it. It will be taken to a dog's home. It will be given a good owner, good chance of a good life. Certainly, having a dog put to sleep, wouldn't enter my head at all. I wouldn't do that unless the dog was in terrible pain and suffering. I wouldn't do that. The dog we'd had that dog, Jack Russell, Lady, for a few months. I don't think she really ever bonded with the family, because at any opportunity she'd run off. She wasn't loyal to any of us. So I think we bought her as an adult, and she must have had some problems from the past. I don't know, but she was very disobedient, aggressive, and she used to bite everybody. But I thought to myself, with the right person, a little old lady that can give it 100% attention and kindness and love and affection, could possibly retrain it. So that's why I took the dog with me to Newhaven. I parked the car, I opened the door, and she just jumped off and ran off. She jumped out of the car and just ran off. Didn't even look back at me. Didn't think twice about it, and she was gone. So maybe maybe that was a bad thing to do. I don't know. Maybe I don't really know. I never know what. I don't know what happened. I'd love to know if anybody, in 1972, if anybody ever found a little white Jack Russell roaming in Newhaven. I'd love to hear. So anyway, went to see the boat. The boat was for sale for, I think, £1,100. I think is what I paid. I think I actually paid £1,100. It was. I mentioned it was a Norwegian dory, 32 feet in length, with a displacement, I think, of about 8 tons. A boat's weight is calculated by the amount of water it displaces. So that gives you an idea. It was a solid boat. I didn't know very much about fishing, sea fishing, or I didn't know very much about, excuse me, I didn't know so much. Prior to that, I'd only had a dinghy, but for some reason I like the idea of making a living from the sea. I don't know why. Maybe it's a crazy thing to do. No experience. I just jumped in the deep end, which is typical of me, I'm afraid. But anyway, I don't remember every detail about who was selling the boat, etc., etc., etc. But I can tell you that the boat was in a little creek. It had been sitting there for some years in a little creek which was full of mud. I got the help of a man. At that time, 72, I'd be about 40. No, I was born 39, so I'd be 33 at that age. 33, yeah. I'd stopped smoking for a number of years, so I was physically fairly fit. But even I realised that I didn't have the experience to take that boat from Newhaven around the south coast, past Brighton, Hastings, Ramsgate, Dover, Ramsgate, around the coast, around to Whitstable. So you pass Ramsgate, Margate, right the way around to Whitstable. It's quite a long way, but I got the help of an elderly chap. Didn't speak much, but I negotiated a price with him to skipper the boat, and I was there as to assist. The problem was that March 1972 there was terrible weather. There was gales nearly every day. I can't tell you where I stayed or whether I was in digs. I just don't remember. Oh, I do remember this, that I had decided to wash the mud off the bottom of the boat. So, and obviously the boat must have started on batteries. I don't remember whether I had the batteries charged. These are small details. It doesn't matter about that. But what I do know is that somehow I got the boat started. When the tide came up, the boat would float. So not far away, down the creek, there was a place with a hard concrete, hard stand slip where I put the boat. When the tide went out, I then had a high pressure hose and washed all the mud from the bottom of the boat. That's the first mistake. Little did I know that the only thing stopping the boat from sinking was the mud on the bottom of the boat. How I live to tell this story, I do not know. But anyway, the weather was terrible. We'd waited about 10 days for the weather to get better. It was blowing a 49 gale, 7, 8, 9. There was a lull in the weather and we took a chance. Good God, oh dear. And when you leave Newhaven, you have a long, almost like a man-made harbour going out to the ocean, to the English Channel. And when you look down, the water was smooth all the way along to the ocean, to the outside of the harbour. But then you could see the high waves there, like this. High waves, like a barrier, which we'd have to go through. Probably about, I don't know, a couple of metres high. Really stormy sea. But I trusted this man, and he was in the he was in the wheelhouse. He was the skipper. He had a wheel. So the only navigation we had was the compass, like a big binnacle, a very good a very good compass in the wheelhouse. There was an echo sounder. I don't think that was working at the time, and I had also there was a pump which worked off the engine, and also I had, for some reason, I had taken the precaution of making sure that the hand pump also worked, and I also installed an electric pump running off the batteries in the bilge. So we had 3 pumps. I had no idea why I did that. Maybe I really don't know, because I hadn't right. But anyway, 3 pumps. So we left Newhaven Harbour and punched our way through that. What do you call that? The waves, and got out there, got into deep water, and did a left turn. I should say to port, going east along the coast. Probably always keeping a couple of miles out to sea. I was standing on the stern, at the stern of the boat, with a hand pump, pumping. The other chap was in the wheelhouse, on the wheel. The seas, we were going into heavy seas. The seas were coming over the bow, over the wheelhouse. My skipper, he was dry, he was okay, but the seas were coming over the boat, and I was being hit by sea water all continually. I had yellow oilskins on, but no life jacket. There was on the top of the wheelhouse a lifeboat. No idea whether it worked. It was one of those inflatable ones where I presume you pull a cord and it opens up and you can get in it. But I had no idea whether it worked. I didn't even know what you'd have to do. All I know, it was there. And I believe there was a couple of life buoys, circular life buoys. The name of the boat was called the Glyn. I believe the Newhaven register was NN 747. It had originally been a whaler from Norway. So the Norwegians would have the big factory ships, which would be hunting for whales, and they'd have these whalers, the Norwegian dory, which they would then harpoon the whales, and that's how they hunted. So this boat had come from Norway, so I thought it must be a fairly strong boat. But anyway, that journey, I don't know how I did it, but the skipper was good. He steered a good course. The weather was terrible, probably force 8, force 9, awful seas, tremendous seas, which you have to keep the bow of the boat headed into the waves. You can't get broached. You can't get broached side on. And I stayed on the stern. We had no food, no refreshments, no hot drinks, no sandwiches, nothing. And it took 12 hours. 12 hours. The maximum speed of that vessel was 9 knots. And I stood for 12 hours, so did the skipper, punching through the seas. The boat was taking on a lot of water. I mentioned that washing the boat, well also, even if I hadn't cleaned the bottom of the boat with a high pressure jet, the rough seas would have cleaned the mud off. And the boat was making a lot of water. So the 3 pumps were keeping the water level down. But we were, if the water had come in any faster than what we could clear, then we wouldn't be here. We wouldn't have survived, because there's nowhere once you leave Newhaven, going east, there's no, the first place that you can get in with a harbour is, I think it's Folkestone. Folkestone. It's a long way, long way. Long way, it's many hours. So if anything had gone wrong, well, we wouldn't be here to tell the tale. But for some reason, I've been lucky all my life. I've faced death so many times. So someone up there likes me. Don't ask me why. But anyway, got to cut a long story short, we eventually got to Whitstable, and eventually did some repairs because it was a clinker built boat, pine, on oak, I believe, and fastened with copper nails, which they're affected with the salt water and the action of the propeller, and then the nails. It really needed to be re-nailed. But all I did actually was, I think I spent a lot of time making sure the nails were tighter from the inside and out, with some assistance, and also I recorked the boat. It's like a very fine cotton. Caulking is C-A-U-L-K, caulking, which you hammer into the gaps of the boat between the planks. Clinker it's like this, but if there's a little gap here, all those are filled up, and it takes a long time, big job, and then you coat the seams with tar. The boat always leaked. I had the boat for quite a while. It always leaked, but not badly. Not badly. The bottom of the boat, beneath the boards, is called the bilge. And I enjoyed working on I enjoyed working on the engine. To start the engine by hand, yeah, the old chain was lying in the bottom of in the bilge, full of oil and water, and so I replaced that, and it was possible to start the engine. Big handle. It was possible to start it. It was heavy, but on the top of the engine there were there was a decompressor which decompressed the cylinders. It opened the valves slightly so that the valves weren't actually sealing. So it meant you could turn the engine. I'm going to actually change the zoom on this. Yeah, so that you can actually turn the engine. To turn the engine when the engine was compressed was impossible, but there was a big flywheel on the engine, and when you decompress the engine with the top valves, you turned gradually, got the momentum going around, and very quickly, when the engine was turning, you put the valves down, you change the decompression, and then it would start. It would start. I had to learn quite a lot about diesels, had the injectors cleaned, and had quite a life with that boat. I bought nets for otter trawling. The nets are you trawl it was about an 8-metre mouth to the net, chain on the bottom with rollers, and the top with floats, so that the top and bottom is open, and at extreme, at the end of the 8-metre net, you have chains, maybe a few metres, and then with big, what they call doors. If you can imagine a wooden kite in the sky, I know a wooden kite wouldn't fly, but if you can imagine a kite in the sky, which the wind, the wooden door acts in the same way underwater. They're heavy, they've got iron on the bottom, they're shaped so they slide on the seabed, and they keep the net open wide, an angle, and the fish are directed into the net. I didn't know anything about the fishing grounds, the dangers, the bad places to fish, good places, bad places. It was all trial and error. And I think I'm going to take a break now and tell you a little bit more about my events as a fisherman next time in my next video. Thanks for watching. Take care and be kind to one another.